And to you, that's the Monkeys. It's called Pleasant Valley Sundays. We say very good morning now to the Dubbo region Mayor Matthew Dickerson, who is sporting a nice tie there. It's grey, red and blue, I think that is. Hello, Mr Mayor.
It's pleasant.
Oh, again, I've done the wrong thing, Matt. What is it with me and your microphone? I don't want to give you any airtime. I think I'm on now. Are you on? Hello, hello?
Pleasant Valley every day is in Dubbo, Bret.
I love it. Yes, it is Pleasant Valley all the time, and now everything is not working here at Siriu. Meetings last night, there was some committee meetings. Wanted to talk to you about a few things this morning. The first is the Dubbo Regional Council has reported the value of development approvals for 23-24 was down 12% compared to the actual previous financial year. Can you walk us through that, how that works?
And that was certainly a discussion last night. There's no decision for council to make around that one. It really is just reporting the DAs each month we get at the committee meetings. We get the DAs, the value, the number, etc. And the bottom line is it's a good way to report to the committee what's happening. That 12% drop in value, sure, we'd always like to see that go up, but when we asked about that last night, councillors did ask about that, and the staff that gave some answers about that said that last financial year was a particularly strong year, very good in terms of the value of DAs, and keep in mind that we've had interest rate rises over the last couple of years, which has probably taken a bit of the heat out of the residential market in particular. That's not just the residential market, that's all DAs, but that's probably taken a little bit of the heat out of that particular part of it. So 12% drop on a very strong year the year before is not the end of the world. Again, we'll look at that and analyse that and keep seeing what's happening with developments around the city to see that we can keep things ticking away. We don't ultimately decide on the developments. Developers decide on that. We only have to process those particular DAs. So yes, I'd like to see it go up. 12% drop is not the end of the world based on that previous year. And that value for last financial year, was about the second best in the history of Dubbo Regional and Dubbo City Council. So it was a particularly strong year.
And Matt, this is despite approving the $25 million South Lakes Shopping Centre, $14 million for Radtree Tourism Centre and $7 million for the Dubbo Christian School expansion in June. So this is a good position, right?
Well, things are still happening, and that's the bottom line. It's not a 50% drop, it's not an 80% drop, it's a 12% drop. Again, we'd like to see things go up, but in this particular scenario, 12%, given the overall scenario the nation is in terms of interest rate rises and cost of living pressures on people, then some of those developments that might be ticking away in the back of developers' minds, they may not be submitting those DAs at the moment because of those other external pressures. And interest rates obviously have a big impact across the economy, which is the whole reason the Reserve Bank does use the interest rates as a way to control the economy.
All right, other major approvals include the retail and apartment developments for the former ANZ Bank and Daily Liberal sites along Macquarie Street. Now, 356 dwellings were given the green light last financial year. That's a lot of number. It's a big number.
It is, and again, that number was down a little bit, but again, that one does make absolutely perfect sense when you consider the impact that interest rates have on residential. When you've got people who are moving to Dubbo, wanting to live in Dubbo, but the bank situation at the moment makes it very difficult to obtain the loans, certainly to the level that they wanted to obtain. And when we talk to the builders and developers around Dubbo, their anecdotal information is that people are saying, I still need a house, but that $500,000 house, can we get that same one for $350,000, of which they can't, of course, but what can I do? How can I change that to get down to something that can meet my budget? So there'll probably be a bit of an adjustment there in terms of some of those houses we see, but things are still happening, maybe not just quite to the same level as the year before.
But this is what Dubbo Regional Council wanted, right? We're moving in the right direction to keep on top of all of this, even though there is a bit of a crisis out there, financially for the rest of us.
Absolutely right. And one of the things that we are doing, certainly in that whole process, is making sure we've got our strategies right. We talk about our Northwest Housing Precinct, the different types of housing that'll be there. Certainly developers are talking to council about different styles of housing. That might be townhouses, that might be units, that might be duplexes or dual occupancy. So all of those variety of housing, that's important to be able to make sure that we can have people that want to live here, which is fantastic, have some affordability in their homes. And affordability often means a reduced home size or multi-dwellings on one site. So developers are open to that idea. And certainly at the last developers forum that we held, there was a lot of discussion around the different types of housing that Dubbo is basically going to be open to as we go forward.
Matt, the state government has also introduced a new league, League, I'm struggling with that word this morning, league table to track housing approvals by local council. What's your reaction to the introduction of this league table? And for those people listening that don't understand, what is this?
So there's a couple of things there. The Minister Paul Scully just sent me a letter only last week that gave a list of expectations. These are the expectations for councils across the state in what you should be doing in terms of the timeframes you should be delivering, and had a whole range of, a table, if you like, of different expectations. Because one of the things with a housing crisis is, an important part of that is getting approvals through the system. Now, this isn't about turning the other way and ignoring some of the approval processes. You still need to go through the approval processes correctly, but it's really from the Minister putting pressure on councils to make sure you've got your systems internally at the level that you can get these going through the system in a much faster way, still keeping all the regulatory processes in place. We looked at those list of expectations and we're above all those expectations already. So we're quite comfortable with that list of expectations. It doesn't mean we're going to sit back and relax. We're going to keep trying to be better at everything that we do. But in terms of those, the bar that's been set there is not a stupidly high bar from the government. It's a reasonable bar that most councils across the state should be able to deliver upon, with all things being equal. So again, you compare us to the rest of the state, we do pretty well with benchmarking, because it's not just about those lists of expectations. We look to benchmark ourselves against similar sized councils to see how we go, and usually we're pretty close in the ballpark, plus or minus a couple of days in terms of how we are across the rest of those.
A state government spokesperson saying addressing the housing crisis is a shared responsibility and all levels of government must do their part. Do you think it'll help address the housing crisis in the way the state government is suggesting here?
Well, it's an important part of it, and I agree absolutely with the quote you've given there from a spokesperson. Having the idea that we're relying on the state government to solve this problem, I think is probably unfair to the state government. They play a huge part in it, there's no doubt about that. But there's no good if the state government and the federal government, for example, put items in place to try and accelerate housing, and then the bottleneck becomes the council or the local council. There's 128 councils across the state, and the state government doesn't control the processes across those. So that's why the minister's put out this statement of expectations to all councils to say, I expect you to be able to approve DAs in these timeframes. So I think that's sensible, and that's a part of that ongoing discussion. We do have regular discussions with Paul Scully and the department, because that's an important part of what we do.
All right, you've come under scrutiny and criticism again for the use of artificial intelligence generated images on social media. New South Wales Farmers Wellington Branch President Peter Carter has told another media outlet the latest image is childish and delusional. What were you trying to portray in this one?
And you're just showing me the image there. That's from that's in relation to the RES announcement, the first fully approved RES in terms of the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone. And I do use AI, I don't hide from that, I use AI in my images. It's pretty obvious they're AI images, they're almost cartoon-like in the way they're presented. And when I use those on social media, it really is to grab people's attention. What's written there is the important part. So the written words, and that one was actually a media release from the state government about the RES, which was exciting news. The first one approved across the entire nation. This is accelerating and going ahead quite fast. We want to make sure that people know about that. So putting an image there, going out and driving out to Wellington and taking a photo of that, the reality is I don't have a media team behind me to support my activities as mayor. Certainly from a council perspective, we have a media team, but when I do things as the mayor individually, then I don't have a media team. Generating an AI image like that took me about 5 seconds, and that's, to me, an efficient use of my time. And it's great to see that the Farmers Federation president in the Wellington branch has noticed the image, because that means that they're reading the article. So it's all about picking up people and making sure they read some of this information, Bret. So it's achieved its purpose.
Well, you previously claimed that any backlash was due to people being scared of artificial intelligence. Why do you think people would be scared of such an image?
One of the things is that artificial intelligence is happening. It's here. It's a part of our society. If you don't like the idea of artificial intelligence, then probably go and live in a cave somewhere, because unfortunately it's part of our society and it's being used every day. We've talked about it before. There are radio ads we know right now that are being sometimes written by AI, sometimes they're being voiced by AI. It's a part of our society as we know it.
Yeah, just not hear it to you. Thanks. I need my job. Let's talk about decision on Australia Day. This is coming up for some chat with Dubbo Regional Council as well. What's happening here? Because you're talking about moving the celebrations from the actual day of the 26th of January, correct?
We've done that previously. So the last 2 years we've held the Wellington Australia Day event. So not changing the date. We've just changed the event to be a twilight event. And when you consider that in Australia, the major awards we give out to Australians, Australian of the Year, for example, they're all given at an event the day before Australia Day by our Prime Minister, and has been that way for many years. So it's not, I don't think, a huge step for us to go to a twilight event. Now, they did change on the back of some councils like ours wanting to change the event. They did change the Australian Citizenship Ceremonies Code. That's Andrew Giles, the Minister, changed that a couple of years ago. So you've got 3 days before, 3 days after to have the ceremony. At the committee meetings last night, we made a recommendation to Council. So the final decision won't be made for 2 weeks for Australia Day next year. The recommendation from the committees was for next year, 2025, Australia Day is on a Sunday. So it's a 3-day weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday is the public holiday. And the recommendation we made was to have the Wellington event on the Friday evening, a 6:30 p.m. twilight event, and then the Dubbo event as the Saturday twilight event. So it leaves all day Sunday for people to enjoy Australia Day, and it might even leave people the couple of days there of that long weekend to be able to go and celebrate over the 3 days if you're in Wellington, over the 2 days in Dubbo. So that's the recommendation. We did say to the community, even last night we discussed it, it's not a final decision. So it's 2 weeks for the community to give feedback. We only had 6 councillors at the committee meetings last night, so there's obviously some other councillors that'll be at the council meeting in 2 weeks' time, but a great opportunity. Contact your local councillor and say what you think. At the moment, the recommendation is Friday night, 6:30 p.m. in Wellington, Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. in Dubbo, and then Sunday, the 26th of January is the day. We're not changing the day, Bret. I can't stress that enough. We don't have the authority to change the day. We're just saying, let's hold the event the night before or 2 nights before in those 2 cases.
All right, I'm out of time, and it's good to see that a few of the councillors are giving blood too. Thank you, Matt. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Bret.